Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty wild ride tracing the evolution of computer code. We're going to look at how a deeply idealistic, almost poetic hacker ethic from the early days of computing totally transformed into the massive, world-shaping corporate and military power that we see today. It's a story of incredible innovation, a ton of unforeseen consequences, and the immense responsibility that comes with, well, building our digital reality. Okay, let's dive right into this with a quote that perfectly captures the early, raw spirit of the computing revolution. Back in 1967, poet Richard Brautigan actually envisioned a cybernetic meadow. You see, early programmers felt this almost electric, godlike allure when writing code. They weren't just building basic calculators to do math. They genuinely felt like they were breathing life into machines. They sincerely believed they could program a perfectly harmonious, utopian future for all of us. So, what does this all mean? Well, it brings us to a really core concept for our explainer: techno-utopialism. This is the ideological belief that virtuality and code can completely reinvent and even redeem society. Think about the apps you use every single day. They were largely built on this foundational optimism coming out of Silicon Valley. But as you'll see, over time, that optimism kind of hardened into a rigid ideology. People actually started believing that messy, complex physical and social problems could be solved just by writing the right virtual code. Essentially, they were trying to build a new Eden entirely out of bits. To really get a handle on how this works, we're drawing on a rigorous academic framework from the DePaul University libraries, specifically analyzing how institutional ethics can just drift over time. Our source helps us understand the tragic arc where highly well-intentioned idealism can unintentionally morph into total institutional hubris. The ideals themselves, things like freedom, connection, innovation, they're incredibly noble. But the tragedy is that when these ideals become absolute, unquestionable ideologies, massive blind spots start to emerge in how these organizations actually operate. All right, so here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll kick things off with the hacker's utopian dream and the whole move fast, break things philosophy. Then we'll dive into the vandalism of Shalom, look at how AI enters the battlefield, unpack the Maven smart system, and finally discuss how we might actually find humility in the digital age. Let's start with part one, the hacker's utopian dream and the allure of code. That early hacker ethic was driven by a profound psychological thrill. It's this bold idea of every man a god. As our source describes it, coding gives the programmer an electric feeling of having a little universe to control. It's almost an act of self-realization. When a coder commands a machine to come to life exactly as they dictate, it confers this quasi-religious sense of power. They literally become the architects of their own digital realities, constantly seeking to mold the real world to perfectly match their idealistic visions. Which brings us to part two, move fast, break things, the fall of the social square. And this brilliantly illustrates what actually happens when that techno-utopian philosophy of move fast, break things collides head-on with real-world social dynamics. Just look at a single year for Facebook, 2018. In February, we see indictments over foreign troll networks. By March, the UN is citing the platform's role in violence in Myanmar. Fast forward to June, massive secret data sharing is exposed, and that's followed by allegations of election cover-ups in November. It is a rapid, breathtaking cascade showing how moving fast in code without any real guardrails can result in profound real-world harm. This brings us to a pretty revealing quote from a Facebook executive back in 2016. It perfectly captures what philosophers call a closed world structure. When an organization is so profoundly convinced of its utopian mission, which in this case is connecting people, literally every single metric of engagement becomes blindly justified. Within this ideology, any growth in connection is viewed neutrally and structurally as a de facto good, meaning they think it's inherently positive even if the real-world side effects of that connection become highly volatile or deeply damaging. Moving on to part three, the vandalism of Shalom and the tragedy of institutional sin. Our source uses a really fascinating theological and philosophical metaphor to diagnose this ethical breakdown: the vandalism of Shalom. Now, Shalom represents holistic, healthy, and righteous relationships. Here we can starkly contrast the noble utopian ideal of deeply connecting humanity against institutional sin, which takes those very relationships and gamifies them. It monetizes our attention and relies entirely on emotional contagion, fundamentally vandalizing the peace and the social fabric that the platform originally intended to build. Over time, corporate hubris creates this totally self-sealing echo chamber. Institutions suffering from this condition start to outright reject outside criticism, and they subordinate every other goal to sheer growth. They seamlessly rationalize self-serving decisions as being for the greater good. And most crucially, and this is a big one, because their worldview is built entirely on code, they inherently believe the only solution to the problems created by their software is simply to deploy more software, specifically more artificial intelligence. Let's pivot to part 4, AI enters the battlefield, the ultimate power. So, we're shifting gears now from algorithms shaping our social sphere to algorithms actively managing the military realm, because here, the scale of data is just as overwhelming. Get this staggering number, 85 years. That is exactly how long it would take just one human analyst to manually review a single day's worth of satellite imagery from just one commercial provider. The sheer scale of modern data collection has completely and totally eclipsed human capacity to process it. So, the absolutely crucial point here is that this massive data collection actually created a paralyzing bottleneck. Drones were collecting vastly more footage than humans could ever physically watch, and disconnected sensor formats meant analysts spent 97% of their time just trying to find the data rather than actually analyzing it. To fix this, the Pentagon adopted AI, and the results are shocking. Using AI, the U.S. 18th Airborne Corps matched the targeting efficiency of a historic 2,000-person team using a team of only 20 people. That takes us to part 5, the Maven Smart System, aggregating the battle space. Let's move to and see how this actually builds into an active military platform. The Department of Defense developed the Maven Smart System, which solves this massive intelligence problem by centralizing up to 179 different data feeds into a single unified interface. Just look at the astonishing speed of this kill chain. First, AI detects a target instantly. Second, the system evaluates available strike assets and constraints, like fuel limits or collateral damage risks. Third, a human orders the strike. And fourth, the system monitors the effects via live sensors. It's an unprecedented acceleration of decision-making. And large language models, or LLMs, absolutely supercharge this entire process. Palantir, which is the prime software integrator for Maven, uses some very specific tools to make this happen. Maven Threads handles rapid ad hoc document analysis. Maven Agent Studio provides interactive AI assistance right there in the interface. And Maven Logic allows for rapid no-code tool development. By integrating these specific LLMs, targeting speed increases by a further 5-fold. The AI translates chaotic sensor data and disconnected documents into clear, natural language recommendations. So a user can quite literally chat with the battlefield data to generate actionable insights instantly. Finally, part 6, humility in the digital age, the antidote to hubris. Whether it's the social media platform on your phone shaping democracy, or the AI systems securing national defense, the power of code is immense. Our sources suggest a practical framework to cure this institutional hubris through structural humility. Organizations absolutely must openly acknowledge human limitations. They must actively invite and protect whistleblowers or dissenting voices. They need to build highly diverse teams to spot blind spots before exploitation happens. And above all, they have to define success by human flourishing, not just by gamified growth metrics. Which leaves us with one final, pretty profound question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. We've seen how the early hackers' dream of a cybernetic meadow evolved into incredibly complex platforms that now manage both global attention and lethal military strikes. We know that software is eating the world. But if that's true, who exactly is writing the moral code? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the systems that shape our world.